knowing that my ancestor was a missionary until 2013. I was having a conversation with my auntie. I was at her house, we were eating satellite, and she said to me, go to the castle and see your name on the wall. Of course, my surname is also her surname. So at that time, our president was here in the office, President Kufuor. So I came, I requested permission to come and have a look at the castle. And I'll take you there, but you'll see, sure enough, my name was written on the wall. So I then got very curious. I had always been interested in the castle. So then I went to do some archival research, and I discovered that Carl Gustav Engman was not a missionary, he was a governor at the castle. So Carl came and was governor between 1752 to 57. He married a Gan woman called Ashokai, who was a chief's daughter. They had children, and as I say, the rest is history. So I'm calling this project Auto-Archaeology because it draws upon autobiography and archaeology and anthropology. And so the way I've designed the project is there are many other people in the project that I'm going to introduce you to who have the same heritage that I do. So we are all Danish Gans. We are all direct descendants of Danish men who worked here during the transatlantic slave trade, who married Gan women. So we have, the names that you are all familiar with. It's Swanaka, Son, Richter, Engman, Hansen. These are all these Danish Gan Euro-African families. And what's really interesting is oftentimes when we learn about history, the Euro-Africans are nowhere in the history books. So you'll probably be wondering why archaeology. People like me argue that archaeology is a very good way for us to understand our history. Because as you know, historically, Ghanaian culture is not a literate culture, meaning they didn't write their histories. So that leaves us with a few options. One is oral histories, oral traditions passed down through the generations, and then the archaeological records. So what we're doing here is we're putting together oral histories that we've all been told, including our own family histories, together with the archaeological record, together with the Danish accounts. And people like me argue that when we put all these things together, you see where the action is. If we're to rely on Danish colonial accounts, we have a very problematic understanding of our own history. Why? Because the Danes, they were here to trade. They weren't necessarily, unless it was in their personal accounts, all their writing was about trade. So they were not necessarily going to write and say, I married a local woman, or I have a relationship with a local woman. We have mixed race children. They were not going to necessarily say this. Sometimes the things they also observed, they didn't understand the culture and traditions, so they observed them in a particular kind of way. So that's why we turned to archaeology. So we started the project in 2014, and what we did was we surveyed the whole castle. So we walked the grounds in a line. We walked from the bottom to the top, and then we walked outside, walked around the castle, walked down the banks and onto the beach. And so when we do that, we're looking for any clusters of artifacts on the ground. So we found certain clusters where there were a lot of broken artifacts on the ground, and so then what we do is we decide, okay, we're going to dig what we call a test pit, 1 meter by 1 meter, or maybe 2 meters by 2 meters, and we dig in the ground to see if there's anything in the ground. And so we did that all down the sides of the castle. What you see here started as a 1 meter by 1 meter in 2014. So when we do the test pit, we take out everything that we can. When we reach a level where nothing else is coming, then we do what we call backfill. So we basically throw all the soil back in. We keep all the artifacts to one side. But with this, 1 meter by 1 meter, we're still going. And as you can see, it's just, these are walls of foundations of houses. These are foundations and walls of houses. And the walls are going in all the different directions. So we're still going back in time. So at the moment we're in the 18th century, so we will keep going until nothing else comes back up. So I don't know if you can zoom. Can you zoom over there? So we have the foundations of houses. Some of the team members are going to come through and then tell you about particular artifacts or things that they like about the project. But, for example, we have the walls of houses, we have a kitchen area indicated by the 3 stones, we have what we think was a well, fresh water. You can see the walls here of houses. So when we dig, it's not, any old thing goes. So what we do is we dig in what we call levels. So we dig 10 centimeters, 20 centimeters, and we go like that. So that's why it's a very slow process. The reason being, you don't want to mix different time periods, right? So the further down in the ground you go, the further back in time. So for example, you wouldn't want to mix something that's 100 centimeters down with something that's 10 centimeters down. You don't want to mix what happened yesterday with what happened 50 years ago, with what happened 100, 200 years ago, and so forth. So, any questions? So after all this digging, what do you think? Great question. This is Sonia's question. So, the team members are going to explain to you the process because I don't want everything to come through the lens of Rachel. So they're going to explain to you the entire process. But the president has announced, in 16, that he wanted to turn the castle into a museum. So we're really hoping that this collection will be featured in an exhibition. So we have, because we're still working, we're still counting, we have about 180,000 artifacts at the moment. So you'll see that actually most of them are actually imported objects for obvious reasons. This is a site of trade. Many of the team members don't have PhDs or formal educations or training in archaeology. We trained them. But what I'm saying is they are still archaeologists. They still have a lot of knowledge to share. So I would really appreciate it if they can also have the platform to share their knowledge, because again, this is a community project. It's not only about Rachel, it's about everybody. So please, I'd be grateful if you can all allow everyone the opportunity. So everyone is prepared and they all know what they're going to say.
Achom Edwin Loko. Ndio Oswalata.
Achom
Edwin Loko. Ndio Oswalata. Ini meji fe loko ka loko. Ambato osune na mfafo. Amba na yona chole na amele. Amekele nchi na amekele fo. Ni na chole loko bi bí ọba tó owó Amẹ́ríkà mọ̀ kàn níbi ṣì jòjò lè kẹ́ bá ń ṣe wọ̀ kọ́ ọ̀nà mọ̀kúnná tó lóko ní ìgbà àdó kẹ́ Amẹ́ríkà mọ̀ kọ́ kẹ́tọ́ wọ̀ ní ìmẹ́nà àgbà tó ṣìyàn bí ẹ ìmẹ́nà tí wọ́n wọ̀ tí wọ́n bí ẹ náà jí bí wọ́n bí ní ọmọ yẹn bí ẹ níbí wọ́n náà bí ẹ tó kò tó wọ́n kán smoking pipe kẹ́ níbi kan kọ́ náà kan wọ́n náà akẹ́kọ̀ọ́ ṣùtọ́ wọ́n náà one glass kẹ́ níbi one glass ẹ̀mí ẹ̀ ṣọ́ àgbẹ̀ṣẹ́ kò lẹ̀ ní ilẹ̀ wọn ìbàyí níbi àmì ẹ̀ bí ẹ̀ lẹ́hùn kò lẹ̀ lẹ́hùn èyẹ̀mí kona one glass na gekule ikanuda kona plate ekule nina amke yeni ke nibi no ni kona wo ye no ni wo tun e bi e
wo keje maybe ni bon ni chumone
o bon tun ne ke gen ba o mi ne mi ba mi ne na 3 years ni yo mi ne
wo maybe ni ngecha maybe ni bon cha 3 years ni bon bi ne cha
da bi o 7 years ke se ne
ni bon bi ne cha ni she ni she ne okay well we need dibo only no ka say ye ni chumo na mi bia na bo ake oje osu nya gbona afa ye osu na mi wo if you ake you are part of this how do you feel about it?
No na wagasi bodo we na gani e ja ga osu jibi na atunu yo osu mo sponsor ni osu mi ayi mi wa shiri tí wọ́n wo tí wọ́n le we wo na ke no ni you te be no tí wọ́n be lo bon madam ne ba le ke onu tí wọ́n wo na emi se agashi ni ne chowone tibi ko ni wole ina ko dan singbe ne gbene e ya ni ngbele ni bi ni na blema ni bi ye ni wo se mu manwa ke bi ke na bi
Mini feel for some kind of project.
oh ke ke agbena ngbepomoji le ba ya ne esa ename ko ne ake wa tu oku ake ni bi le chowo ne eyin ki an wo se ko ke afi museum ya bi ene ke mbi ko ba o ya ke mpa wa tu ni e bi ke ba museum mi mpi chapete je me alo nyame ko bi mba yen ba okay yes
ani ni bi e ni na ye bi e ni le no ni akeda
o fa ne ke afi museum e bi ake ko me ba sa mi ni ka ba na ba ko e akwa choncho mi yeah
Achomi Benjamin Odenke Anna Njosu Demo woni ke wona ni amegbawo bibi ni emi ne John Riste ke wo yomu ko be ba fo ye osu tolowo won ke na yin shi ni tuwo mi ni wo mi te ni ba ni na ye bi ene ni di asankole ko chole asankole ni ba bi ene ba mba kase ni bi pi bi ene do mi be ni fa pe mi la ke blog na ke mo cho si tuwo mi ni wo te se ani apo na ke do tuwo ni wo cho bi ene na kan te no na ke mo cho wo ni na ba gba mi fin bi ato ni no bi ene no tuwo ni wo cho le mba kase ni bi pi ye bi ene te fobite do ga yo shitoke bibi inaka inake abiba jeshiye bi ene baba o yo ni no le so ni mo yi kase ni bi to bibi ko mi ba naji mba naka ke ebi ne smoke pipe ke ebi ne bottle to da me ke ye ni ke bibi fe yeah
ko ko nebo beni abaje ne keni na pro
maybe
ko ko abaje
project bi ani in level ni aba na ja ke ko chun le yi bodu mi se ni ela ba láti wo je ni ko chun le ni dono mba chun ni ne ko nke pi o mbia school fees ke bi pe won so le oni da ne bine ndushu wa bani wotu ijake mito ni ngiye lehun wo se ke bine atifate ni wo na ka ke wo museum mi ko ni amon ami na ngba ibi akesin se wo mi tu negen ni tu wo se ko ke nbe ami wa na ke iye museum mi o de mi je
asobawo blind ko blind ko komeni yo osuma mi na maka me ha woni ke gbeja no so ne mi
o fa ne no ni nka yen ba wo mi eja ke wo se ni emo su dike iba ba osu ni ni wo tun ke wo na ni ye wo ye obraye ko me na mi shai ke di bi akeya iko bi ani no ni wo ko ke tu akeya iko bi ani no o fa ne o mbogwa mi wale ja ke ni tun wo be bon ni tun wo be mo o ke ni ba ko ifi ke wona pe ni da ni won so le ni tun wo e ya yin ko ni won ne ko ni o ke ko mi ko to de ke ba o mi wo ke le wa ba ni ke hu wo ke le ba ni tun wo tun wo ye form ni wo feel ke wo ye form wo feel e sa ni o ko do ke wo ko to mi nodo ana ye bi ni sanushi esa anu ke jopo esa anu wa ya gbo na ni o wa ke o jajo wa ke yen na nike o ke nu tun eje ke
atom rasta inganji osu fe o lo mo ike ni nke awaje ni tun mo se ke o la ti ame bi ogbe kian nke da shows ke bi ogbe kian ni meke na mi dana mi jo tumushi o le ndane ke ba ya ko ni jimun ko yo shi o ne ba da ka shi no ke ko waje ni tumushi ko ni le ke da shows da ke tumushi shi ma chu alo ke ma chu na mi tele mo ne ke ni ba na bo ni tumushi ni ba na ko ba di ajo ko je shi ke level 1 ya level o le bo bien level 5 o yo bien nene jini ke chu alo classe level 5 ke ni la bibi ke bibi ke Sofia e buana to meni imbrai Can you do so? It's too late. Get a channel for the Raja. Woman get into sugar, Babuana. Then Lua will wait for him. I'm going to on it. The law will wait for him. The buyer, then I see what here. Take a tenor, see what here. I see Bonaparte artifact here. Look at me, I'm alone. What's up? Oh. Go in here, or no, there's a general owner, level 2 can be level 2 care, no one on the road is on your now, not too fast. In a cookway, look, Medra, or get a banana, can I as a fire for you, the bull thing, I get it, chase. Yeah. What's up, yes? You like I take Lembo, like Moyo Jenny, my game, Nimano Kuni, who put much the cheese can be Manako Jemmy kitchen, but I go on if you be. I cannot know what town can be. One Nangan can be when I can Jemmy kitchen lele, I won't need Jemmy. There will be no check and I can tell Janelle on one idea. What you need for the engine. Equal. And then what I look like I'm being chosen to down so sleep and you're fighting the year and you're my shoe. And then you are going to like I said, you know, you are
So Lalani is our youngest, but most important member. She's an expert. She started today, so maybe you just want to tell us, because Lalani's been wanting to come here for several years, right?
Actually, yes.
So how was your first day?
I think it was actually pretty fun. I did find a few things. I found some broken pieces of pots and then the end of a pipe. And I also found a few shells as well when I was sieving the dirt and when I was actually digging in the trenches as well. And now over here, instead of digging like this, I have to use this instead because the wall is actually, we're trying to trace where the wall goes. So we're just going to try and find where it is so we don't accidentally destroy it in the process. So overall, for my first day, I think it has been quite an experience, and I'm looking forward to doing more. Yeah.
Thank you. I don't know who it is yet, but one of the Ghanaian professors who unfortunately passed away, an archaeologist, he thought it was my ancestor, but I don't think it is because my ancestor opened a brewery in Copenhagen. So we think it is, obviously someone associated with the castle, probably Danish. So let's walk here. So if you remember at the beginning, I was saying to you that I had always grown up as a child knowing that Carl Gustav Engman was a missionary, and then I discovered that in 2003 that he was not, that he was a governor at the castle. So he was governor at the castle between 1752 to 1757. When he was governor, he had this well constructed. This well was to provide fresh water for the Danes and the Euro-Africans and the captives. Because if you think about it, you've got Danish administration living and working at the castle. You've then got the captive Africans who are incarcerated in cells. And then you've got what was known as castle slaves. Castle slaves were people who, they were canoemen, so they helped with the trafficking of captive Africans, getting them onto the slaving vessels. They were also artisans who kept the maintenance of the fortification. They were also domestics doing the cooking and the washing and the cleaning. So they all needed water. So this was built in order to get fresh water. The original castle, the only original part of the castle that still exists is the ground floor. There was an earthquake, and so the second 2 floors were originally wood, then they were reconstructed. There was a chapel here. There was also a so-called mulatto school. We don't use those terms anymore. But it actually meant it was a school.
Don Clanklin wada chofilish ake ni papa na ba hawo ye wakuchia me je kin kan no peshin osu electoral area se fin e baba se na mo hawo Clanklin ibani wo kai wo blema ni chumoy no ni wo forefather se ba chun ina me ke je ke heni ameke ba she ke agbene hu e hanu blind ko blaye na ni chumo cause wo hani mo mami eli akeshin ke ba construction work ke ka acheme conclude wo ebo modern agashin akeha wo indigenous people le bi onye mehi ke ye ajime ni ameyi apa ke ha ni chumo ne no ni ji ten hu me baba na bakase ni me baba na ba akwe ni banye ewa ni shikafiofio ni obana ise na mu banya ke uran assembly ka gbene hu wo akuchi ami we ni ji se na mu ni yo ke ha wo nga wo ni yo ji non man bunga ni maka mjaishi amekani wo hie pa wo be mani bia no amechae ni amekani ujimeni amenya amekani amebana makwe ko wa kwa ngula ni bia ni ngabanya bla bi chonbo ni don gbe ni bani wo rich history e ka laji wo ojugba ame hegbe aka mba makwe shinsa no wa le bol ake bia ni security zone wo bejan to yehi ni atuo oko ishako blanu blaido jakuchi ami obaba no ba chum bujano tunisa lo chono eke aha ni obami ke oba ni ne hi dase oya enena akue pa to nse ni be Clanklin no njona agbeji wonya ho no wole agashin ene fin Clanklin na agbe she ba kai ni ke influence aya me manyi konklu mara ke ne France bi ejime na me wa ke nchumo ame piano nchumo ne e han wole ake ke me konklu baba ni ame ba wa ke yi ke bua wo akuchi ami oya do